DuPont.
Do you buy DuPont, makers of better things for better living through chemistry?
DuPont is an American multinational chemical company. You may recognize their invention, Teflon.
Don't make a meal without that steel DuPont.
You know, the thing used in non-stick pans. Or maybe you know about Kevlar, the thing inside military helmets and vests. Or maybe nylon. These are just some of the many chemicals DuPont produced over the years of their existence. Cancer Alley is the most likely place in the US where you could get cancer from air particles. It is so severely polluted that almost every household there is reported to have a family member perish due to cancer. See, to create some of the chemicals DuPont were making, they use chloroprene, a substance with evidence of it being very bad for human health. It causes cancer, and more of it in the air, the worse it is. Beginning in 1968, a factory in Cancer Alley, owned by the chemical company DuPont, emitted chloroprene into the air in reserve without much attention. Residents complained about intermittent bursts of chemical odors. Back in the day, people weren't very educated on the topic. To be fair, nowadays they aren't either. But who could have known about it except the manufacturers themselves? This air graph displays the safe amount of chloroprene emissions in the air. The safe threshold is about 2.3 micrograms of chloroprene per cubic meter. The emissions of chloroprene in the community of reserve are way worse than that. All due to DuPont and their practices of getting rid of waste for cheap, even if that means poisoning the air of thousands of people. In 1999, lawyer Robert Billett initiated a legal action against DuPont, asserting that chemical waste, perfluorooctanoic acid, contaminated the property of a Parkersburg, West Virginia cattle rancher. A subsequent lawsuit in 2004 alleged that DuPont's actions resulted in extensive water contamination across Ohio, contributing to elevated rates of cancer and other health issues. In 2019, DuPont led the Toxic 100 Water Polluters Index. There were 34 accidents involving toxic releases and at least 8 fatalities at DuPont plants nationwide since 2007. DuPont's LaPorte plant, a 400-acre complex crisscrossed with pipes and dotted with smokestacks, stood out as one of the nation's most troubled chemical plants even before 4 workers were poisoned and asphyxiated in a pesticide unit there. In the incident, 4 people were killed trying to stop a leak of a foul-smelling chemical. One of them was trying to rescue his brother from the incident. Both perished. I mentioned this substance named Teflon at the beginning, and obviously, because DuPont made Teflon, they wanted to get some money out of it. To make Teflon at a cheap price, DuPont used a chemical called C8, or perfluorooctanoic acid, or just PFOA for short. DuPont has faced fines from over-releases of the perfluorooctanoic acid from their works in Washington. PFOA contaminated drinking water led to increased levels of the compound in the bodies of residents who lived in the surrounding area. A court-appointed C8 science panel investigated whether or not there is a probable link between C8 exposure and disease in the community. In 2011, the panel concluded that there is a probable link between PFOA and kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, high cholesterol, and more. Unlike other pollutants, PFOA persists indefinitely, resisting degradation and requires physical elimination to reduce body levels. That means it stays there forever. Phillip Morris.
Smoking kills. But damn, it feels good.
Phillip Morris is a tobacco company. It owns many different brands, but is mostly known for its Marlboro cigarettes. Phillip Morris, who I will from now on refer to as PM, had almost 70,000 employees in 2021 and over $31 billion in revenue. The tobacco industry has gained notoriety for its deceptive practices, misleading both consumers and the public at large regarding the addictive nature of nicotine and the harmful consequences of tobacco smoking, even going as far to use propaganda that showed it was healthy. While PM no longer refutes the link between tobacco smoking and life-threatening cardiovascular and pulmonary diseases, it attempts to downplay its significant contribution to the immense disease toll directly linked to smoking. According to the Global Burden of Disease study, the year 2015 alone witnessed smoking being responsible for over 1 in 10 global deaths and claiming the lives of over 6 million individuals. PM justifies its ongoing operations by asserting that consumers consciously choose to commence smoking despite being aware of the associated health hazards. As long as there remains a demand for cigarettes, PM pledges to meet the demand, with its sales exceeding over 740 billion cigarettes annually. With 90% of its revenue originating from cigarette sales, coupled with the expansion of its market share in developing nations, PM employs aggressive lobbying tactics to undermine smoking regulations and restrictions meant to safeguard public health. PM has tried to sue Australia, Norway, Uruguay, and the UK for simplifying or banning tobacco advertisements. PM lost every lawsuit. To try to seem more environmentally and human-friendly, PM's campaign is to promote a smoke-free future. Using the same tactics tobacco companies used for the past centuries, PM is trying to push IQOS and vapes into the market, saying they are completely safe and there are no studies showing they are bad for human health. Even funding their own studies, which as we already know, are often deceptive and made as a business move. Quote, "The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the US Food and Drug Administration are investigating 1 death and nearly 200 cases of sudden severe pulmonary disease, primarily in adolescents and young adults, all believed to be linked to the use of vaping products.
Millions, hundreds of millions of dollars was spent on doing research that would reduce the harm of the cigarette, but it wasn't actually used. If you're selling a product that has very high risk, and you know how to make a product which dramatically reduces that risk, until they actually do it, they haven't changed. If it's nicotine people want, we can give it to them safely. They can make inhalers. You can put the nicotine in there and suck it in without any other chemicals.
Gazprom. Gazprom is a Russian oil and gas company. As of 2019, it was ranked as the largest publicly listed natural gas company in the world and the 32nd largest company in the world. As of filming this video, the company is just 34 years old. Other companies of this caliber need a lot more time to accumulate their wealth, but they just have so many natural resources that this was inevitable. It is mostly owned by the Russian government with 50.23%, and it has $324 billion worth of assets with over 450,000 employees. If you go to the Wikipedia page of Gazprom subsidiaries or the businesses they own, you can scroll for quite some time before you get through it all. In 2018, Gazprom produced 12% of the global output of natural gas, so it's expected to be one of the leading facilities in CO2 emissions. In 2013, they were the second largest carbon dioxide emitter worldwide, with 3.3% of the total emissions belonging to them. In other words, that is 1,135 million tons of carbon dioxide. Since it has this much gas and oil, it has a lot of power over countries that rely on Gazprom for their oil. Gazprom delivers oil to countries via underwater transport cables or pipelines. The Nord Stream pipeline specifically were trashed on by countries like the US and Ukraine for concerns over influence over Europe. In 2022 in September, NS1 and NS2 ruptured and there was a big pressure drop. This is thought of as being a sabotage, but that's a story for another video. Since the start of the war, Gazprom has demanded that Western countries pay for gas in rubles and has stopped deliveries to some European countries altogether. Gazprom has waged gas wars against Ukraine for at least 4 times in the past. By far, the most outlandish thing about this company is that they legally have a right to form their own private army. Keyword here is legally, because other companies on this list have it already. Gazprom is run as a threat to other nations and an easy way for Putin and his peers to get a lot of wealth. Despite all this money, Russia is criminally undersupplied with gas, with some areas not having any energy at all. There are reports of people living near Putin's luxury resorts who do not have any options to heat their homes with gas. As you may have assumed by now, Gazprom has wanted other nations to be more dependent on their services, and that's why they have been lobbying governments around Europe to connect with their company more. One of the more significant cases was lobbying in Germany. Gazprom did a really good job in making nations dependent on their oil. Oh, but they do a lot more than just lobby governments. There was this company formed in Florida named Itera, founded by a man named Igor Makarov. On the surface, this company was your regular company that invested in natural gas and resources, but lying beneath that facade was a more interesting side. Billions of dollars of Russian natural gas resources were transformed from Gazprom to Itera for artificially low prices, then sold to the markets by Itera, allegedly profiting Gazprom managers who were also beneficiaries of Itera. That was not even hidden, with Gazprom managers doing the same thing with their own families, giving family members money for free essentially, handing over $566 million for free, or actually $1,200. But I honestly think that Gazprom deserves its own video because it's so interesting what is happening with this company and around it, so I just might make a video on it, maybe, someday. Shale.
Before, you could not be able to see the other side because of the mangrove vegetation. It covered the whole of this area by the pollutions of 2008 and 2009. Destroyed the whole place.
Shell is an oil and gas company that was founded in 1897 and later in 1907 merged with the Royal Dutch Petroleum Company of the Netherlands to keep up with Rockefeller's Gas and Oil Company. But before I start talking about this topic, here's a disclaimer. The stuff that we are about to talk about, it involves death, murder, violation of human rights, and other details. If you feel that's too much for you, please skip to the timestamp on screen. Although Shell has many controversies, I'm going to be talking about Shell's work in Nigeria specifically, since those are the worst. The next quotes come from Amnesty International, an international non-governmental organization focused on human rights. Quote, more than 13,500 residents from the Ogale and Bile communities in the Niger Delta have now filed claims against Shell, asking that the company clean up oil spills, which they say have wrecked their livelihoods, poisoned their wells, and polluted their land and water, which means they can no longer farm or fish. End quote. Shell has been taking oil from the country of Niger for quite some time, and the oil spills have started to affect the lives of those who live next to those oil spills. Their fishing had to stop because the fish that were left there had died. The drinking water is contaminated because of the oil, and they had a choice of either living or drinking toxic water. This had been the norm there for years, and the protests started to commence. Naturally, Shell wanted to continue their practice there because the oil brought in a lot of money. They started lobbying the government to use military force if needed on the protesters. And that is exactly what happened. Quote, in 1990, Shell requested the assistance of a paramilitary police unit to deal with peaceful protesters at one of its facilities in... I'm not going to pronounce that. The police attacked the village with guns and grenades, killing 80 people and torching 595 houses. End quote. Many of the residents tried suing the company to no avail due to the court system being influenced by Shell's lobbying. Fast forward a few years, and a new protesting group started to appear, leading it Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 other people. They were a lot more successful than the other protesters. To make matters even more worse than they were before, these 8 people were framed for murder. On the 21st of May in 1994, 4 Ogoni chiefs were brutally killed. Saro-Wiwa had been denied entry to Ogoniland on the day of the murders, but he was arrested and accused for inciting them. He denied the charges but was imprisoned for more than a year before they said he was guilty, and he was sentenced to death by hanging, as were the other 8 leaders. There was a big outrage obviously, and the widows of these men tried suing Shell, and they won. Quote, between 1989 and 1994, the company reported an average of 221 spills per year, involving some 7,350 barrels of oil per year. End quote. This is all I'm going to say about Shell, but just imagine if this were to happen in Europe or the USA. The backlash on this would be crazy. The British Petroleum Company. I'll refer to it as BP throughout the video. Many of you who are interested in natural disasters and overall knowledgeable already know about the Deepwater Horizon explosion and oil spill. The spill was so bad that the fishermen near the Gulf of Mexico lost all of their business. The explosion killed 11 men and 16 were left injured. The amount of oil leaked is estimated to be around 780,000 cubic meters of oil. That's approximately the size of 300 Olympic swimming pools. BP was forced to pay almost $70 billion for oil removal. But interestingly, they didn't pay anything to Mexico, nor did the higher-ups have to face any charges for the deaths of refinery workers, even though it was known that the disaster had happened due to the company failing to provide sufficient safety on the Deepwater Horizon station. And why did they fail at it? The same reason as always, to cut expenses and maximize profit. This was their most infamous oil spill, but not the only one. In 2006 in Alaska, BP was at fault for a 5-day oil leak that led to 2 acres of the North Slope being soaked in oil. Confirmed by BP, it was due to cutting expenses. In 2010, BP released over 240,000 kilograms of toxic material into the air of Texas City, and it all happened because of negligence, and they were sued by over 45,000 people who said they were sick those days. The company denied anyone feeling sick because of it, and due to the lack of substantial evidence, the company would later be absolved of any wrongdoing. In 2007, 143 workers at the Texas refinery claimed that they were injured when a toxic substance was released at the plant. In December 2009, after a 3-week trial, a federal jury in Galveston awarded 10 of those workers $10 million each in punitive damages, in addition to smaller damages for medical expenses and pain and suffering. The plant had a history of chemical releases. In 2005, a refinery BP owned in Texas City exploded and 15 people died, with 180 others injured. Quote, inspectors found 270 safety violations that had been cited but not fixed and 439 new violations, end quote. BP agreed to pay $50 million and $13 million extra for safety violations and a felony violation of the Clean Air Act. And I don't know where I should put this, but BP literally popularized the term carbon footprint. Also, in 1953, the MI6 and the CIA overthrew the government of Iran because they nationalized their oil, the oil BP had been mining up until that point.